Here to talk about what Phase 2 looks like, Joel Rubin, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for Legislative Affairs, Simone Leeden, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for the Middle East. Nice to see both of you. Ladies first, I would contend, and I said to Bill O'Reilly, but I don't think it really matters what happens in Gaza or with the West Bank right now for what Trump needs to do next.
That's interesting.
Cynical, but probably true, is what you're saying.
It is cynical. People are watching, but I do agree in the sense that the hostages are released now. And so that's been the cause of so much of this, all of the angst, all the drama, and all the deep emotion. So seeing them released now, if there's, and we do see now this renewed violence, Hamas is coming out from the floorboards now. And I think it's much easier now to deal with that for the Israelis or
well, it's going to be the Israelis are the only ones to deal with it. But Joel, you have deep understanding of Israel, and I think there's every reason to watch this celebration in a heartwarming and wonderful way. Does the world, though, through the celebration, forget about the 1,200 who were murdered and raped and pillaged by Hamas? Do they forget about the thousands of lives who were totally changed on October 7th? I wonder if somehow Hamas and Israel now are put on by the way this has been transpired.
You know, Leland, the sad truth is I think the world forgot about that pretty soon after October 7th.
Fair point.
And you know, today is a strong reminder of the humanity of the crisis of what took place on that horrific day 2 years ago. But the world does need to maintain memory of that in order to support a next day. And the next day matters. What happens in Gaza matters, because that will determine whether or not there's security there. It will impact whether Israel has to go back in. It will certainly impact Palestinian lives. And I hope the world will start to help the Palestinians and tell Hamas to back off rather than make this Israel's problem again in the future.
Well, and Hamas is already gaining strength in the West Bank. When this all began, I think we can fairly say, is at the very beginning of the Trump presidency, as there was this focus and look towards Gaza and what to do about it. President Trump came out and talked about how maybe the United States should take over Gaza. And people, if they could have lit their hair on fire, would have, about how absolutely absurd it was and how crazy it was. We watched the speech here. And I told you at the time that this was the most consequential change to American foreign policy in 50 years, because Trump was starting to look at Gaza, the Middle East, very differently than any of his predecessors, Republican or Democrat. In a bit of perhaps TV navel-gazing, let's look back and see what I said back then. He has put forth a plan, right, to take care of these 1.8 million people. He said Arab nations should accept them, with the Arab nations instinctively, as you rightly point out, instinctively said absolutely not, because they would much prefer to have the Palestinians to use as a cudgel than to actually help the Palestinian people. Therefore, Donald Trump is allowing, in the world of public opinion, or at least in the world of American opinion, an opening for Benjamin Netanyahu to do whatever he wants to do to Gaza. That was probably pretty important.
Prescient. Yeah. Look, I mean, that was a step in, and the president wanted to sort of lay out a vision of an end state. It didn't go anywhere, obviously. It did not work on the ground. But I do think we're going to continue to see the United States leaning in. And this is very significant. Even if the president hasn't fully settled on a policy and a role for the United States, he's now in. He's now committed. He's now signed on the paper. This is not something we expected. The America First idea is to not get involved. Well, he's involved. And so as the process unfolds, maybe not the March pronouncement, but certainly the United States has to be engaged every day.
Simone, though, it's an interesting flip, right? Because this idea of America First, there was this narrative that meant that the United States was going to retreat around the world. What we saw today is evidence of the exact opposite. How do we merge those two thoughts about what Trump's presidency is?
Well, Trump is the peace president. Trump is the Abraham Accords president. Trump is looking to Arab nations who were in Cairo today to really pick up and become leaders in the region. This is the whole point of normalizing with Israel. Now they talk with each other. They have a robust economic trade, many more countries than before. And that now also includes security cooperation at a level that we've never seen before.
All right, so Joel, I hate to make this about domestic politics, but we have to.
Do it.
What does the Democratic Party do now about Trump's foreign policy?
Oh, this is an existential challenge to the thinking about where Democrats go on foreign policy, because in many ways, President Trump has taken the playbook out from underneath us, doing multilateralism, bringing allies together, saying that the United States is going to use diplomacy. These are all core tenets of democratic foreign policy, and now it's his foreign policy. And so I think we have to decide, do we support it, or do we kind of wish it maybe wasn't him but someone else? I support it when he does the right thing. I think he's done the right thing here. And I think the Democrats, we can walk into government at the same time. We can oppose other policies. But this, if he continues on this path, this is a highly pragmatic foreign policy that will have broad bipartisan support in the country.
Well, country's changing for sure. Thank you both. Appreciate it. Joel, Simone.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.